Council to order, please. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Sorry, Councilmember Bertani?
Here.
Councilmember Moy, I believe, is on Zoom.
Here.
Councilmember Panduro?
Here.
Councilmember Tim?
Here.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro? I think he's online as well. And Mayor Price.
Here, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
We'll turn now to public comments. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Persons wishing to address the City Council on subjects on the agenda may do so at this time. The council cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting. To speak on an agenda item, please complete a speaker's card and give it to me prior to the time for public comment on that item, sorry. When joining via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone to request to speak. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
And our first item, new business. Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
Discussion regarding various landscape lighting maintenance districts and fiscal year 2022 to 2023 projected budgets. And our presenter is Ryan Panganiban, our Public Works Assistant Director. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me okay? There we go. Good evening, Mayor Price and members of City Council. My name is Ryan Panganiban, and I'm the Assistant Public Works Director and City Engineer. Also joining me tonight is Chris Lewis, our Management Analyst, and joining us virtually is Danielle Wood and Sarah Mayers with MBS. So before diving into our presentation tonight, I wanted to share with Council that we conducted a town hall meeting last night for the landscape and lighting maintenance districts, 7, 11, and 13. Over 80 residents and property owners tuned in to learn more about their assessment districts within the Rolling Hills, Paradise Valley, and Cordelia areas. So we're thankful and grateful for the opportunity to continue this conversation with you here tonight. So as Council is aware, on an annual basis, staff presents the budgets, its annual reports, and levies special assessments in order to maintain the improvements within the 16 landscaping and lighting maintenance districts within the city. We've recently obtained new information through our work with MBS, and we wanted to share this intel with you, Council, in advance of the loan discussion scheduled to take place on May 3rd. So real briefly, I wanted to touch on 2 key changes Public Works has implemented in the past couple years to manage the day-to-day administration of these LLMD programs. So first, from a staffing level, we have identified the correct level of staff, which entails a full-time employee dedicated and focused on this LLMD work. In years past and through the Great Recession in the late 2000s, these LMD responsibilities were a percentage of an individual's work allocation. So second, we wanted to acknowledge that there was a need for us to augment our team and bring in a subject matter expert, and that is MBS, who's on the call with us today, and they specialize in LMD assessment engineering and community engagement. They've worked for similar sized cities, Oxnard, Elk Grove, and also local Vacaville, so we're happy to continue to work with them. So I also wanted to acknowledge there was a request for the formation of an oversight committee. So staff will be returning to council at a later date to discuss the parameters regarding that oversight committee for those landscape and lighting maintenance districts. So last summer, the city contracted with MBS to complete a comprehensive review of all 16 landscape and lighting maintenance districts. So the focus of the review was focused on the engineer's reports, projecting future expenses, and analyzing our district budgets. So MBS work wrapped up in March, and over the next several slides, I want to walk us through a status report for all 16 districts, and Chris will highlight the findings and details from that study. So on this slide here, it provides a visual for the general locations of the various LMDs throughout the city. So the good news is that in general, a majority of the districts have a healthy fund balance and are operating in an efficient and fiscally sound manner. So these districts are represented here in green and are noted on the slide. So this slide depicts the next tier that staff has already presented to council in the past year, and they have been identified to have a budget shortfall in fiscal year 21-22. So as council is aware, we've already engaged with these neighborhoods, and the assessment engineering work is underway with MBS. So, and finally, this slide, it represents the new information that we've obtained from MBS, and it's specific to LLMD number 1, where we've identified a need to make changes in this upcoming fiscal year, 3, 5, 6, and 8. The good news is that within those 3, 5, 6, and 8 districts, we can maintain the same level of service. However, it is MBS's recommendation to proceed with the community engagement process and Prop 218. So that the details of those districts specifically, Chris will cover, so I'll hand it off to her.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Chris Lewis, Management Analyst with Department of Public Works. So as Ryan mentioned, we do have some districts that need a Prop 218 vote in fiscal year 22-23, and those districts are listed here. You'll notice that 7, 11, and 13 are grayed out because we already have a plan in place to address those districts. So today's presentation will be centered on the 5 districts that staff has not yet presented to council on or touched base with the community on. So those districts are number 1, Gateway, 3, Waterman, 5, Smith Ranch, also known as Rancho Solano, 6, Pepper Tree, and number 8, Kolob. So of the 5 districts that we haven't already addressed yet, only one of those districts, LLMD number 1, Gateway, will not have enough assessment revenue in fiscal year 22-23 to either maintain regular services, and when I say regular services, I mean the services that we are currently providing and have provided in previous years, or pay for the consulting fees needed to conduct the community engagement and assessment engineering and Prop 218 balloting that will be required in this district. The 4 remaining districts, 3, 5, 6, and 8, will have enough assessment revenue to maintain services in regular services in fiscal year 22-23. However, only LLMD number 5, Rancho Solano, will also have enough revenue to pay for the consulting fees. Consulting fees for all of this work, community engagement, assessment engineering, and Prop 218 balloting, we're budgeting at approximately $80,000 per district. The funding shortfalls in each of these districts range from about $20,000 in LLMD number 8 Kolob to $170,000 in LLMD number 1 Gateway. And the total shortfall for all districts is $290,000. So we can take a closer look at each of these districts that have a deficit individually, starting with LLMD number 1. In this district, it is projected to have a net between its revenue and expenses of about negative $60,000. This figure does not include the consulting fees. This figure only represents the shortfall if regular services were to be provided and assessments were assessed at the max rates. The expenses of about $265,000 include a 30% increase to landscape services. That equals about $90,000 because the current contract, which is about $70,000 currently, ends on December 31st of 2022. And given the recent landscape bids that we've received for other districts, we anticipate that the bids we're going to receive for this district will be significantly higher than they currently are. These expenses also include about $120,000 for water services. This is also a significant increase to what has been budgeted in previous years, and I want to give you a little bit of history on that. So in April of 2021, right around the same time last year, staff began developing the fiscal year 21-22 budget, the current year we're in right now. But in order to do that, we had to project what we were going to end fiscal year 2021 with. Water services in all previous years had never been over, they weren't over $90,000. Some years even had $60,000 water services. So staff set the budget for fiscal year 2021 and 21-22 at $90,000 per year. These estimates were, again, back in April of 2021. After fiscal year 2021 finally closed and all expenses were accounted for, water actually came in at $110,000 for fiscal year 2021. And now that we're about 75% through this fiscal year, 21-22, we are projecting that we'll end up at that same figure of about $110,000. So these unexpected overages, which is about $20,000 each year, or $40,000 total, came out of the district's fund balance, and that would have otherwise been factored into this budget that we're seeing here for 22-23. So we no longer have that $40,000. So we feel that this $120,000 has given us a good cushion to be able to provide those regular services. Now, if we look at the fund balance portion of this slide, we will see that the district will begin the fiscal year 22-23 with already negative $30,000, which is where that water comes in to play. If we add in that net between the revenue and expenses, and we will end the year with negative $90,000. We're not done yet. We have to add in those $80,000 of consulting fees, and that's where we come up with the ending fund balance of about negative $170,000. The remaining 3 districts tell a little bit of a different story. In that although there is a negative net between the revenues and expenses, these districts did have enough fund balance to sustain the budget deficit and also still provide those regular services. So the slide you're looking at here is for LLMD number 3. This district will start off its fund balance with a positive $90,000. It will use $60,000 over the course of the year to provide those regular services, and will end the year with a positive $30,000. But again, we have to add in those consulting fees, and that's what brings us to the projected negative $50,000 in that district. Number 6, Pepper Tree is in the same boat, meaning they can provide regular services, but those consulting fees tip them over their fund balance, and we have a projected remaining fund balance of negative $50,000 at the end of 22-23 as well. COLAB is in the best shape of all 3 of these districts because they will end fiscal year 22-23 with only negative $20,000 if we were to provide regular services and consulting fees for this district. So each of these smaller districts, 3, 6, and 8, really have maintained a healthy fund balance throughout the years for these last few fiscal years. But of course, these fund balances are relative to the size of the districts themselves. They were really meant to cover just occasional operating costs like, unexpected repairs and occasional water overages. But they're really not sufficient to cover these one-time consulting fees that we're now faced with, which really these consulting fees only occur every 10, 20, 30 years, just depending on, inflation and all of that and how well the calculation was done. Well, I can't even say how well the calculation was done, but really it's just inflation and other outside factors. So tonight, our next steps for each of these districts that was presented to you tonight really will include that robust community engagement that we're providing to Districts 7, 11, and 13. We're still going to do the Prop 218 vote for these districts because we are seeing that they're continually eating into their fund balances, and we will be coming back to council for contracts to be able to conduct that work. But before we actually get to that step, what we're looking for, it's kind of cut off on this screen here, but what we're looking for is what we're requesting from council is direction as to whether or not a general fund loan may be offered to these 4 districts, 1, 3, 6, and 8, to allow for those regular services to be provided while we go through that process. So it's similar to what we're doing with 7, 11, and 13. With the first option here in orange, that first bubble, if council approves staff to offer the loan, then we will engage the community to confirm whether or not, in those light green bubbles, to confirm whether or not they support the loan. If they do, then we will continue to maintain these enhanced or regular services that we've always been providing, and then we'll go into the Prop 218 vote over the next year. If the community does not support the loan, then in those teal color bubbles, we will reduce the services to match the available revenue in 22-23, and then move into the community engagement in Prop 218 during that year. And the second option is shown there in the yellow bubble, And that option for council's consideration is that the council does not approve staff to offer a loan to residents, in which case we would bypass that initial engagement. We would move directly to reducing services as soon as possible, and then we would move on to the community engagement that's specific to the Prop 218 needed to inform the 23-24 assessments. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
So, Ryan, I got whoever this is for. How did some stay close to black and others are so red? What is it? Is it the size of the district? How does that happen?
I would say it's the size of the district. It's also the cost of the services provided throughout the years. Some have accumulated a fund balance at a much greater, at a faster rate than other districts. So that also comes into play when when we have to use that fund balance to pay for the services for the year.
They don't talk to each other?
The fund balance and the budget?
Yeah.
It should, and actually they directly affect one another. Throughout the years, like I said, sometimes assessments, not that assessments are collected at a faster rate, but the fund balance has grown at a faster rate just due to the cost of services in any given year.
And then can you just explain consulting services for me, or consulting fees?
Sure. The consulting fees consist of community engagement, which is working groups, town hall meetings, publications, a website dedicated specifically to this purpose. Also I hate to call it a customer service line, but as NBS is augmenting staff, they do answer questions directly from the residents, point them to where they can find information and resources, and help them figure out their assessment rates, et cetera.
And does that continue?
I'm sorry?
Does it continue?
Yes, that will continue. We have them on contract for general administration, consulting.
So each LLMD has its own consulting?
Yes, that's under a separate contract for general community engagement. The community engagement we're talking about specifically for these districts and districts that need Prop 218 is that more focused and intensified community engagement, which will include the working groups that meet more frequently than once per year. It'll include more publications, more mailers, things like that.
Okay, that's all. I don't think not loaning is an option, but that's all for me. Thank you.
Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. So the LLMDs that weren't negative but are going to go negative when we tell them we're hiring a consulting service for them, what is our answer to them when they say, if we're not bad, why are you hiring somebody trying to fix this and it's going to cost us money?
We would point them to the projections that we currently have that show that they will be negative in the next 1 to 3 fiscal years if we don't do something now, or they will have to reduce their services until eventually, some of these districts are only assessing $30,000, so in the year 2035 or 2040, $30,000 probably won't get you much. So that would be the response to that.
So the consultant then is the one that crunches the numbers and comes back with what we should charge or what we should have been charging and what we're going to charge in the future?
That is correct. They will provide that assessment engineering service.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? Mr. Vice Mayor,
Yes, Mr.
Councilman
Mayor.
Boyd, please.
Mr. Mayor, this is Catherine. I had a question about, it appears to me, looking around our county and elsewhere in the state, that this issue with LLMDs is occurring all over. Susan City has a real bad situation down there where all of the work is stopped and the city is a mess. The parts of it that were being taken care of. So my question is this because of the inflation that's happening? How did this sneak up on us? And how do we ensure that it doesn't happen again? And my last question is, when we are putting together these in the future, how do we ensure that we are not coming up against this? Because this is very upsetting to our residents and obviously all of us, and it doesn't look good for the city. So I would just like some answers to those things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, so from what we're hearing from our consultant is that other cities throughout the state and, everywhere else are facing the same problems. I will answer that, not just recent inflation, but inflation over time, since these districts were established 30 years ago, and there's been, I think one of them had a Prop 218 vote in the mid-2000s and late 1990s. So inflation over time has really caught up with us now, and I think 30 years is actually a really good time frame for these districts to not have needed a, another Prop 218 vote. How we're going to avoid this in the future is making sure that we're going to be projecting out a lot further than just maybe 2 or 3 years. Let's look at 5 and even 10 years. And we're also going to make sure that we maintain a healthy fund balance. So we have our consultants on board right now who will help us, I don't want to say industry standards, but help us with our best practices, so that way we can keep that 50% operating reserve in the fund balance. And once we start getting into like a red zone of maybe 15 to 30%, we start looking at other options of either cutting services. Maybe it means another Prop 218 vote in the near future. But Public Works, as Ryan had mentioned, we've restructured. So we're really taking a closer look, keeping a better eye on this throughout the year and projecting out further.
Thank you for that explanation. What I'm wondering is, do our auditors ever pull these out and look at them? Because I have sat on the audit committee and I haven't seen anything come up with this. Who audits this, and when is it audited? I guess that's for the city manager.
Yeah, I believe that the accounting of the revenues and expenditures is handled through the annual audit, but the audit does not look at whether or not you're overexpending or underexpending. Ultimately, that's through a budgetary process. So, the auditors are looking at whether or not we're accounting for the funds appropriately, and that the proper controls are in place for the expenditures. And what I mean by proper controls is, making sure that there's, no opportunity for, fraudulent activity, and it is not necessarily on, how the funds are managed from year to year in terms of whether or not from a budgetary perspective we were spending into fund balance, which for many of these districts was the case. I hope that answers your question.
Somewhat. We can talk about it offline. Yeah, I just would like to see us with funds like this, not just look more closely, but maybe hire a different type of auditor to do that, to look at it, to make sure, because, we cannot, our citizens rely on us to get these kind of things right. And if we can't get these kind of things right, landscaping that they're paying extra money for, it's a bad look, I think. And I appreciate everything, that the city manager's office and Public Works and everybody else has done, and my colleagues, because this is a difficult situation. And I just don't want to see us in it again. I know none of us do. So if we could take a different look at it, I don't mind being on the audit committee, or some other subcommittee to look more closely at these things. So maybe we can just talk about it offline. But thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Just real quick, that's a part of, as Chris was mentioning, with the contract with the NBS, it'll have some component of ongoing management assistance, since they're experts in these special districts, and the financing of these special districts will be taking a much more intense look on an annualized basis at the long-term viability of these at a longer time scale. And then, as was requested, I believe at the last meeting by Councilwoman Bertani, we can come back with options to look for some form of oversight committee. At a later date, staff will present some options. One that we have currently, obviously the audit committee is there, but we also have the Measure P oversight committee that would provide us some framework of how we could look at doing a long-term LLMD oversight subcommittee of the City Council.
Yeah, I mean, for now, I would suggest that we go ahead and have the audit committee do that. I don't think we really need to make another one, but that's a policy decision that the council will make together. I just want to make sure that there is that oversight, and I appreciate everybody's efforts and ideas toward that. Thank you.
Councilwoman Bertani, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for a great presentation and for a great job last night as well on the town hall meeting. I just want to clarify our contractual relationship with NBS. So did I hear you correctly that the NBS consultants charge approximately $80,000 per district?
That's correct.
Okay. And then in addition to that, is what else is our contractual relationship with them in terms of this ongoing capacity? Can you give me a little bit more detail about what that looks like?
Sure. So I think it was last summer, as at the same time we contracted with them to do the initial review. We also contracted with them to do ongoing community engagement efforts, which basically included the formation of the website, which includes a GIS page. People can go on, click, see what their assessments are. It, also an information bank where they can find out a little bit more about their districts. It includes one meeting per year, so we can keep constant touch with the residents. To make sure they understand their budgets and their assessments for the upcoming year or any questions they may have. It also includes that customer service line, for lack of a better term, where residents can call and request information or ask any questions. Of course, they can still come directly to the city. That's also another option. But if for whatever reason they choose to just send the message directly to NBS, they can. That is about $1,500 or $1,600 per district per year. So it's very minimal.
Okay, so, and that's all in the same contract. So there's the by-district engagement, the public engagement, about $80K per district, plus another $1,500 a month per district for kind of ongoing oversight?
Yeah, and those are two separate, those would be two separate
agreements?
contracts, yes.
And those agreements are annual, are renewed annually?
Yes, we just, I don't remember if we set the initial term to be a 2-year
Okay.
term. I don't imagine we set it any higher, longer than 2 years.
Okay, and then when did we bring NBS on?
August of 2021?
And prior to that, prior to bringing NBS on, who was doing this work? Who's responsible for making sure that our LLMDs are in good shape?
It was Public Works for, I want to say, maybe 15 years or so.
So it was previously handled with our Public Works manager. That classification, that individual, a percentage of their time was looking at our construction management, our golf, and also the LLMDs and special districts and assessments.
And who is that person now?
So today, looking through our LLMD process and our special districts is Chris, so as our management analyst. She's made the recommendations to bring MBS on board and help kind of guide us through this process.
Okay, and then the contractual amounts that we pay NBS, that's not general fund money, is it?
No, that's included within that's included
That's
with,
the district, each district pays their fair share of that?
that's correct.
Okay. I think that's it for now, thank you.
Any other comments, colleagues? Thank you very much for the presentation. And there's no action you need.
We just wanted to make sure that we're getting some direction, again, with the table that's on the screen right now. Do you want us to follow the pattern of what we have done currently with districts, with the 3 districts, 7, 11, and 13, with these other districts that we recognize that we have these shortfalls in the upcoming years, which includes the loan, which, as we've indicated, could be upwards of $290,000. Is that, I'm seeing heads nod and thumbs up. Okay, then we will take that direction. Thank you very much.
All in favor? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Ryan. So, we adjourn this meeting now, and we'll go right into the regular city council meeting starting right now, please.
And I'll
Madam Clerk,
take
if you
roll
would.
again. Councilmember Bertani?
Here.
Councilmember Moy?
Here.
Councilmember Panduro?
Here.
Councilmember Tim?
Here.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Here.
And Mayor Price.
Here, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
We'll continue, please. And the invocation this evening The invocation this evening will be led by Pastor John Reed of the Fairfield Church of Christ. Pastor, are you with us? It's good to have you here, sir.
This is one of our Clergy Action Network members. Welcome in.
That's fine. That's fine. Let me ask everyone to pray with me at this moment, please. Dear God, we are thankful for this day and appreciative that we have an opportunity such as this evening to come to you in your presence, and we do that because of Jesus, your Son, who died for our Savior and for our sins. And we're just asking you, Lord, that you would bless us this evening with your presence. We want to give thanks for all of our city members, servants who elected or otherwise that have been given to us to serve this city. We also pray for this city, for all the members and citizens of such. We ask your continued blessings on that. This night, we ask the guidance and the wisdom that can only come from you. May you direct the thoughts and minds as it applies to the agenda issues tonight. Father, give us the knowledge and the wisdom, direction that we will be able to accomplish the things that have been given before us. And may those decisions that are made tonight be blessed, that they will bring about successful conclusions. We ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
And Pastor. Turn now to council reports. Councilman Bertani, would you like to begin, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. It's always a better meeting when the chamber is full, so thank you and welcome. I just have a couple of things. I want to remind everyone that, first of all, I want to say thanks again to our staff and to NBS for really helping our neighborhoods out through this LLMD maze of issues that we're dealing with. I think we're in good hands now, and we'll do better because we have to. So I just want to thank staff for that, and I want to remind everyone, at least in the Rolling Hills District, Thursday. So day after tomorrow, 7 p.m., there will be a Rolling Hills Neighborhood Network meeting at the Board of Realtors on Hillborn at 7 p.m., where we will take up once again the issue of the LLMDs. And these issues will be before this city council the first meeting in May. So it's really time to really nail down where we're going to be going with this. We only have a few weeks left. On next Thursday, April 28th, I'll be holding a town hall meeting at the Paradise Valley Golf Course in the clubhouse, where we again will be talking LLMDs. Saturday, May 21, I'm having a town hall meeting out at Gold Ridge at Filati Park. That's on a Saturday, 11 to 1, and then back to Rolling Hills, a town hall meeting on Saturday, June 25th, 11 to 1. And that is, a Saturday as well. So just trying to increase our community engagement as much as we can so that we can stay in contact with each other and let each other know what, let each district and our residents know what is going on, and we know what's going on in our neighborhoods. So with that, I think that is my report, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Moy, your report, please.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple of smaller things, I think. The first is, this month, April, is National Poetry Month, and there's always something every month, right, going on. But the reason why I bring this up is because we right now are looking for a new poet laureate, and our clerk, Karen, Reese can tell you more about that. But it came to my attention because Jennifer Barton sent us all a letter and mentioning the name of somebody that she thought would be really great here. I agree with her, but I look forward to people applying, so Karen can tell you more about that. The other thing is that it's all this week is National Volunteer Appreciation Week, and I just wanted to say our city would not function without all of the volunteers who help us every day, from the police department to in the arts and everywhere else. People out picking up trash, a lot of people doing that. And all of this is really possible. Karen Reese, again, I just want to thank her publicly. I don't think I've done that before. I wanted to thank Karen because she does a great job with getting the volunteers together and so on. So thank you, Karen. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up was something that's much more serious. I was contacted today because there were threats made at Green Valley Middle School, and the school district knows about it. Our police department is involved. And this is the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is because, first of all, it was a threat for Thursday, and school is going to be open, and people are expected to have their students at school. But yesterday, Councilwoman Panduro and I interviewed people, young people, our youth leaders, who want to be on our youth commission. And one of the things that came up with them in their applications or in discussion was that our students are very stressed, and depressed. And we've had some suicides in our school district over the last year and during the pandemic. And I think we need to address this somehow. What I would like, Mr. Mayor, is for us to have this agendized to put on with our school when we meet with the schools. And we do that quarterly. But I'd like to learn more about that and what the schools are doing, because it's obviously scary. I talk to young people, some who are depressed. One young lady that I mentored, I got a call that she had tried to kill herself. And it breaks my heart. And I think that you, Mr. Mayor, as an educator, and also Vice Mayor Vaccaro might have some ideas with this. And I'd really like to see us talk about it. I think that's part of it, and not hide it in the shadows. That's what I've been told. So anyway, if we could get that on the next agenda, not for the city, but in our joint meeting, that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, and we'll bring that up with the school district ad hoc committee too. So thank you very much. Great idea. Wonderful. We'll pursue it. Councilman Panduro, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to just give a thank you to Girl Scout Troop 30104. So I met with them last weekend in these chambers, and they were here earning their democracy badge. So they asked me to come and speak to them about local government, how to be involved, the importance of civic engagement, and also our roles and my role as a city council member. So it was just a great opportunity to bring young folk in and engage with them and allow them to see, the city chambers, number one, but also allow them a safe space to ask questions. And they asked some pretty good questions. I was very impressed with the questions they had to ask, and so our future is very bright. And I love to speaking to youth, so I love being able to do that, to show them that that they can do and be whatever they want to be. So thank you again to that Girl Scout Troop. And also, I wanted to bring attention to something I just posted. As some of you may or may not know, we are getting a new community park. It is called the Macrosia Community Park, and there currently is a survey out. If you go to macrosiapark.com, you can take the survey. So they currently are working on the master plan. It is going to be a 50-acre park, and it is located off Vanden Road, about 1.5 miles east of the train station. So if you haven't taken the survey, please take the survey, give your input, a lot of great questions. Again, it is a community park, so community input is important. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Tim, please, your report.
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to thank everybody. I'm seeing some new friends and some old friends I haven't seen in a while, and I have nothing to report. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Tonneson, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome, everyone. I'm just going to touch on a couple of things that, as most people know, we've been really hitting this Heart of Fairfield plan hard, and you guys have been doing a great job with that. So I just want to mention a couple of things. One of them is on the consent calendar. I'm not asking for it to be pulled or anything, but I just wanted to try and get out to the downtown merchants. We offer a facade improvement program, and so and I'll just give a quick example. If you want to do $10,000 worth of project costs to doors, windows, stuccos, awning, signage, things like that, the city will cover up to 75% of that. So for the downtown merchants that are, hopefully some of them are listening, the money's there, and there's been several projects already that have taken advantage of that. And we also have a major facade improvement. Those go up to $50,000, and the city will cover 25 or 50% of that, or 25,000. And that is on the consent calendar tonight, but I just wanted to kind of bring it up. And then also about the downtown, again, we've been working on this downtown plan for many years, and now it seems to be going in the right direction. So what you'll find on the city's website, it's, we try to get the word out there, but it's not always the easiest to do. So there's going to be a downtown leadership business workshop series. So for all of the businesses downtown, twice a month, starting in May and ending in August, there's business planning and goal setting to improve your success. These are all just classes that we're putting on that are geared towards, again, getting more foot traffic downtown. Financial fundamentals of business, human resource essentials, marketing strategies, building sales and customer loyalty, homeless and the downtown business owner. I'm sure that class will be well attended. Storefront window marketing and how it will drive traffic. So again, I'm just trying to give a shout out to the downtown merchants. We're there for you, and feel free to contact me or contact the city manager, and we can walk you through any of that. Thank you. That's all from me, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Vaccaro, please, your report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to kind of follow up on what Councilman Moy said. Well, first of all, the kids from Fairfield are coming back this week. And as my colleagues know, I do a lot of work in the different schools in Solano County. And yeah, mental health has always been, and I think I've said this more than one time at our council meetings, that is the #1 issue in our country. And also one of the major issues with our young people. So yeah, I think we should. I would like to collaborate more with the school district, both Fairfield, Sassoon, and Travis, since they're both part of Travis is in Fairfield, and to talk about this, because it is an issue that continues to come up. It's an issue that is so critical for our young people to move forward. And I know that a lot of them do have a lot of anxiety about what's happening in the world. Remember, they were out of school for almost 2 years. And so I think that's part of the issue that's going on right now with the kids that are back in school. So yeah, I would like to see that. And the last thing is, I know that Saturday, I believe they're having a Blues and Brews Festival down on the lawn and across from the county building. And I think it'd be a great event that everybody can come down to. So that's my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor. And I should like to report that Saturday evening, our police chief, Cantrell, and some of her staff members were there over at the Islamic Center for an annual event. Just an amazing opportunity every year. So colleagues, if you get the invitation next year, please put it on your calendar because you'll find it tremendously worthwhile. And then on Easter morning, as I've been doing for many years now, I go over to Leeville Park and the Kiwanis Club of Fairfield, working with the key clubs in all of the high schools in Fairfield, put on an Easter egg hunt, and because of a little bit of sprinkle, it wasn't as well attended as it was other years, but those folks are determined that they're going to continue to do that. And I would urge you next year to take advantage if you can. Mr. City Manager, your report, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A couple of things I'll give an update on, and then there's a couple of agenda items to just give you a quick note on. As Vice Mayor Vaccaro mentioned, Blues, Brews, and Barbecues is Saturday from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. downtown. It's general admission for all for the blues music and barbecue. And then for those 21 or older, tickets are still on sale and available for the beer tasting portion. That's $45, and it gets you unlimited beer and wine tastings with many microbrews and a couple of our Sassoon Valley wineries that'll be partnering with us on that event. We have received some concerns from residents regarding Rockville Hills, the regional park and open space. And the concerns raised have been that it looks like there's projects going on out there. And so what I wanted to do is just give a quick update to the City Council and to the public that the work that's going on out there is actually on the county side. And so as many of you are aware, the Solano Land Trust is opening the, excuse me for botching the name, but the Patwino Wurtla Kodoi-Dihi Regional Open Space Park. And so they are working with the county to make some improvements that'll include a parking lot at their park, which will be on the north side of Rockville Road, as well as some improvements for a crosswalk across Rockville Road. We have been in very preliminary conversations with the Land Trust on whether or not there's opportunities for us to better improve connectivity to those two regional open space parks, the one that is owned and operated by the city, and then the one that's owned and operated by the Land Trust. And so coming up in June, we have a Rockville Hills Citizen Advisory Committee meeting where we will be, staff will be presenting some of the conversations we've had with the Land Trust on potential options and getting their feedback and input on what that might look like, as well as doing a budget presentation at that meeting just to highlight the budget for Rockville Hills and really engaging with the advisory committee for some of their input on that. The other thing that I was going to mention real briefly is something that I think is definitely a win for us and something for us to be proud of. Our fleet division was recently named number 30 in the nation for Best Fleet Management by the National Association of Fleet Administrators. The program identifies peak performing fleet operators for their performance and innovation within fleet management. And so special thanks to our fleet manager, David Rentschler, and his team for their outstanding work that led to Fairfield being recognized as one of the top run fleet management programs in the nation. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, there are two. So item 9 from the consent calendar, that item will be pulled from consideration tonight. That comes at the request of the applicant who is doing the improvement agreement for Linear Park Trail out at the One Lake development area. So they've requested that that item be pulled tonight. And then the second item is item number 18 on new business, the presentation of our annual comprehensive financial report. Unfortunately, just bad timing, our interim finance director, Juan Gomez, has fallen ill, and so we would look to just postpone that presentation until the May 3rd meeting when he could be back here to answer any questions that the City Council might have for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. City Attorney, your report, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good evening, Mayor and Council and public. Just wanted to give the Council an update on 2 requests that you made to the City Attorney's Office. The first was a request for an update on homeless enforcement. I've talked to some council members about that. That is scheduled to be reported in public per your request on May 3rd. And then we also had another request 2 weeks ago regarding the home on Waterman Boulevard. That will also be reported out to you again in public at your request on May 3rd. So we're working on those, and we should have those for you the first meeting in May. Thank you.
You, sir. Our elected city clerk, your report, please.
I don't have a report this evening. I'm just looking forward to reading the proclamation for National Volunteer Appreciation Week and also hearing from our poet laureate. She's written a special poem for the occasion, so thank you.
Okay. So we go to presentations, please.
Okay, our first presentation is proclamation declaring Autism Awareness Month, and our presenter is Councilmember Tonneson.
Thank you, Karen. This is from the Office of the Mayor, Fairfield, California, proclamation Autism Awareness Month, April of 2022. Whereas autism is a complex developmentally disability that typically is diagnosed during the first 3 years of life, impacting development in the areas of behavior and self-help, learning, social interaction, and communication. Whereas autism may affect anyone and does not discriminate by geography, class, gender, or ethnicity. Whereas the incidence of autism in the United States is now reported to be 1 in 44 and is diagnosed in approximately 1 in 30 children in California in 2021. Autism spectrum disorders are 5 times more likely in boys than girls and is the fastest growing serious disability in the United States. Whereas more children will be diagnosed with autism this year than with Down syndrome, intellectual disabilities, and cystic fibrosis combined, which is partially attributed to healthcare professionals becoming more proficient in diagnosing autism disorders. Whereas there is no known single cause for autism, although researchers believe this is a link between genetics and the environment, and there is no cure, but early detection and developmental intervention can greatly improve the outcomes. Whereas autism has wide-ranging implications for the entire family and is critically important to educate parents, teachers, child care providers, and healthcare professionals to recognize the signs and development delay and refer them to intervention services to help them develop to their full potential. Whereas local and regional resources and providers, including North Bay Regional Center, Parents Empowering Parents Support Group, Special Care Services, Easter Seals, and Solano County SELPA provide outreach and intervention and services in Fairfield and Solano County. Whereas the goal of Autism Awareness Month is to spotlight the rising prevalence of autism and foster understanding, inclusion, generate interest, support continued training, education, and research to identify the cause and the cure for this complex disability. Therefore, I, Mayor Harry T. Price, the City of Fairfield, do hereby proclaim April 22 as Autism Awareness Month in the City of Fairfield. Thank you.
And I forgot to mention, Debbie Davis will be accepting the award. I forgot to include your name on the agenda. I apologize. And I believe she'd like to say a few words.
Would have called you up here.
Come on, guys.
Good evening, council members, mayor. Thank you so much for this proclamation. It's been a few years since we've done it because everything sort of shut down with COVID, but we were still going. So my name is Debbie Davis, and this is my partner, Angel Hickson, my partner in chaos. We both have regular professional jobs, and now we're wearing our chaos outfits because we are creating Club Chaos this summer again in Fairfield at the Alan Witt Aquatics Complex for kids with autism and other disabilities to be included with just the regular activities and summer camps that other kids enjoy in the summer. I am also a Fairfield business owner of a healthcare business and a nursing professor at the Solano College RN program. And Angel is the special needs liaison with the Vacaville Unified School District. But in our alter egos, we are chaos coordinators. And so we try to come up with new programs for kids that help to, get them involved in other things going on in the community. So that's why we're really proud to accept this proclamation tonight. The first summer camp experience we started in 2016. We've been in the city of Fairfield ever since, and next year, the city of Vacaville and Sassoon City have both requested that we provide the kids' services there as well in the summer and maybe throughout the year. So we were happy to be, again, bringing it back to Fairfield this summer. This is just one example of including children and adults with special needs into regular activities that are going on, and it's so important. Our mission is to really ensure that kids and adults who have autism and other special needs have access and opportunity to participate in anything they want to do. Anything, just like everyone else. Sports, recreation, employment, educational opportunities. Also, some of the most famous people in the world are on the autism spectrum. And I didn't know if you knew that, but Elon Musk, Einstein, Bill Gates, Dan Aykroyd, Mozart, and Anthony Hopkins are just a few. There's a lot, though. If you Google it, you'll see autism spectrum and celebrities. So it's really a different way of thinking and processing, and it's something about not really tolerance or inclusion, but really embracing the differences in people, because that's what makes our community so interesting. So our Club Chaos sessions are just about full for this summer, but we are looking to hire some volunteers and chaos buddies for the summer, because each child that attends has a one-on-one support person to make sure that they can fully participate in the activities. So thank you again. 1 out of 30 kids in California. California's rate of autism is much higher than the national average. So in a city like Fairfield, that would be about 4,000, almost 4,000 individuals are on the autism spectrum. So this isn't rare at all. So thank you for allowing us to bring attention and awareness. And you want to say something, Angel?
No.
No? Okay.
Thank you, we appreciate
Thanks.
your support.
Thank you.
And would you
Bill wants to get your
hold for the
photo.
please?
Want me to move that picture?
Actually, to the left, yeah. Or actually, you want to hold it?
Yeah, you hold
There
it.
you go.
Perfect.
Ready, and one, with laptop. Okay, ready, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Would you mind taking one more for me?
Oh, sure.
And Debbie, I can send that photo to you.
Thank you, Karen.
Ready, and 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, return to our second presentation, please.
Yes, and our second presentation is proclamation for National Volunteer Appreciation Week. And one of my many duties is also coordinating the volunteers for the city, excluding police. Anyway, so I will read that proclamation now. Good evening. National Volunteer Appreciation Week is April 17th through the 23rd of 2022, whereas the third week of April has been designated nationally as Volunteer Appreciation Week to recognize the hard work, dedication, and passion of volunteers and national service members throughout our nation, and whereas last year more than 63 million Americans gave their time in service to our nation, which is a testament to the compassion and generosity of the American spirit, and whereas studies prove that volunteering builds stronger communities, promotes ethnic and cultural harmony, builds valuable skills, and provides better job prospects, and whereas volunteering also enhances individual health and well-being by increased socialization and reduced loneliness, provides a sense of purpose, helps people stay physically and mentally active. And whereas the City of Fairfield is committed to encouraging volunteerism and national service among its employees, citizens, partners, businesses, and organizations, and we thank all volunteers for their dedicated service. And whereas just in the past 10 years alone, hundreds of dedicated City of Fairfield volunteers completed more than 305,000 volunteer hours, assisting in every department during special events and helping with special projects. Our volunteers are invaluable and deeply appreciated. Now therefore, I, Harry T. Price, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, California, do hereby proclaim April 17th through the 23rd, 2022 as National Volunteer Appreciation Week in the City of Fairfield, and we honor the many accomplished volunteers who graciously give their time to the city. Thank you, and I want to thank Brian for showing all of these photos of our many volunteers. And now I'll call up our Poet Laureate, Bonnie D. Michelle. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Price and our City Council members and the public here. I've written this poem, The Heart of a Volunteer, in recognition of all the volunteers that give their time and commitment to our community. The heart of a volunteer is large and heavy, filled with passion and commitment, long endurance and kindly intent. This heart gifts freely, with full consideration of its knowledge and time, while helping others to shine. Whether on a sports field or assisting in a classroom, volunteers bring us together with unity, constantly enriching our community. They donate solace to our elderly, sharing compassion and cheer. You'll find them leading scouts, building character, not instilling doubt. They work to improve our surroundings. It's often not a glamorous job, whether picking up litter or running neighborhood watch. Volunteer outcomes are simply top-notch. Volunteers are considerate of everyone. They rarely ask others for help. Volunteer, get involved. Then you'll find another volunteer problem solved. Please be mindful of volunteers. Thank them for their constant contributions. Step up and offer your support. It will be welcomed, assistance of any sort. Volunteering becomes a lifelong endeavor. With a full understanding of paying it forward, accomplishments might not be seen or felt for years, yet giving back continues to drive the heart of a volunteer. I want to thank you all here. I know that you are, elected, but I understand that you have thousands of hours of volunteering that you have done for our community. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Bonnie, and I
Thank you,
really
Bonnie.
appreciate I really appreciate the fact that you and your husband, John, do this role so very, very well. Thank you both very much. What an honor it is.
And that was a lovely poem. Thank you.
And our next presentation, Madam Clerk, please.
I believe we're on to public comment. Okay. Persons wishing to address the City Council on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. The council cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting, but council members may briefly respond to statements made or questions raised by the public, ask for clarification from staff, refer the matter to staff, request staff to report back to the council at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. To speak on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone. If you're on Zoom, speakers are limited to 3 minutes per item. Thank you. And our first speaker is Gary Sengo.
Hope I don't blow this. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and members of the Fairfield City Council. My name is Gary Sengo. Myself, my wife Lori, and my sister-in-law Debbie Sengo together own approximately 185 acres on Lyons Road. The property has been in our family for about 30 years. We would like to respectfully ask the City Council City Council to ask the city staff to consider the property to be part of the primary preferred plan as part of the general plan. Update. Sorry. We feel it would be a benefit to Fairfield for the tax revenue. I apologize for not being at the one meeting. We were unable to attend to request that our property be in the preferred plan at that time. I rest assured I will not miss another meeting. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I think what Mr. Sango's talking about is back in March, when we started our plans, and due to family situation, they couldn't show up. And I had made the comment that I wasn't interested in considering that property for annexation. And then, since then, he and I have spoke, and we always talk about transparency and we're in no hurry. And I encouraged him, he wanted to come speak, and I encouraged him to come and ask about how we can at least look at your property. My stance still hasn't changed, but I think you, sir, deserve a fair chance.
Thank you.
And to present. So what I'm asking for is if my colleagues agree that the city manager can put him in touch with how we go about doing that, so.
City manager.
Mr.
Yeah, I'm David Gasway, and I believe I have your contact information.
Yes, I have.
We received an email. We have the
I have
contact
his
information.
email
So,
and phone number.
I'll have staff reach out to you to discuss that
thank
process,
you.
all right?
And I'll forward it to my sister-in-law.
Correct. Yep. All
And
right.
we do have an interested buyer, so I think he's watching, so
All right.
hopefully.
All righty. We'll be in contact.
Okay, am I good?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And our next speaker is Robert Fessenden. I hope I said that right.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, my name's Robert Fessenden. A year ago, almost to this day, I emailed all of you because there was a fire at the corner of Fairfield Avenue and Tabor Avenue, which is my next door neighbor. And I was hoping things would be done. And I'm here to thank you because this last week, the city crews came up there and really made a tremendous difference on my next door neighbor, your property. I'm in kind of harm's way, and over the last 5 years, I can't tell you how many times we've had homeless camps there. And a friend of ours, a number of years ago, her house burned down because of a homeless camp behind her house. I'm in harm's way, but it was just made me so thankful to see the crews up there. They totally trimmed away this underbrush and took away the limbs of the olive trees that have been just a wonderful campsite if you want to camp there. But now they've kind of opened it up, and I just wanted to thank you. So here I am. And I know that property has just been a thorn in probably your side for years. It's the old water tank site, and it's been on the market, and I can't ever see it being sold for development problems, but I had some ideas that someday maybe some of you, we could talk about what could happen to that property. So anyway, thank you again. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Jeff Traeger.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I want to bring you up to date on what we have coming up at the Downtown Theater. Starting tomorrow, we have the Missouri Street Children's Theater's version of Cats. And then on the 5th of May, we've got the international known group called Voina. And I don't know if you know who Voina is, but it's for kids 6 to 17, 7 to 16, I think that's what it is. They have been all over the world. In 2012, they were invited to perform at the Olympic Games. They've been to South Africa. They were the first United States children's choir to ever be invited. And also, they've been 5 times invited to the White House to perform. And some of their kids that have performed there have gone on to be finalists in The Voice and American Idol. And one of them went on to a young lady named Holly Stell from Vacaville, who went on to record with Andrea Bocelli at age 11. And I don't know if you remember this, but her version of Ave Maria at Matt Garcia's service was unbelievable. I'm sure you remember that. So they'll be performing on the 5th of May. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you. I have one card. I'm not sure if David Pyle wants to speak on public comment or on an item during, I'm sorry? Oh, item 20. Okay, we'll call you up at that time. Thank you. And I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, so I believe that's it.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, convene the meeting of the Joint Housing Authority, please. Madam Clerk.
Okay. The holding of a joint meeting of the City Council and Housing Authority entitles the council members to receive additional compensation of $35 for attending this joint meeting. And I'll take roll call again. Commissioner Bertani?
Here.
Commissioner Moy?
Here.
Commissioner Panduro?
Here.
Commissioner Tim?
Here.
Commissioner Tonneson?
Here.
Vice Chair Vaccaro?
Here.
And Chairman Price.
Here, we have a quorum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'll read the consent calendar notice. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the authority or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item.
So moved.
In favor? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bertani?
Yes.
Commissioner Moy?
Yes.
Commissioner Panduro?
Yes.
Commissioner Tim?
Yes.
Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Chairman Price.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Madam
And I
Clerk,
didn't catch who made a second. Oh, thank you. Okay, let me just jot the time down. Okay, and now we'll move on to the regular consent calendar. Again, all matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the City Council or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item.
So moved, Mayor.
You don't have any request to speak cards, Madam Clerk?
No, I do not.
It's been moved by Councilman Tim, seconded by Councilwoman Panduro, please. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, and that'll be excluding number 9. Okay, and I'll take roll. Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And we'll move on
Madam
to
Clerk.
new business. Item 16, continued resolution 2022-65 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield designating additional city-sponsored special events for calendar year 2022. And our presenter is Interim City Manager David Gassaway.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. This item is a continuation from the last meeting. It's a resolution that's designating additional city-sponsored events. As I'd presented at your last meeting, Chapter 12A of the Municipal Code, which was amended back in 2021, sets some new parameters for event permitting. These are special events that are generally speaking held in public rights of way or areas that are in the public that may require resources such as road closures or security or the like. It designates major special events and minor special events, and then makes certain exceptions under 12A.4 for various events that do not require special event permits. One specific subsection of that identifies city-sponsored events, and under the ordinance, codified within 12A, are 6 specific events that are identified as city-sponsored, and then provides the city council the opportunity by resolution to designate additional city-sponsored events. So within the staff report, and more specifically the attachment to the staff report, the Exhibit A, we'd lined out special events for the city that in our estimation would require special event permits and to designate them as city-sponsored events for our 2022 calendar year. At the last meeting, there was questions specific to the Tomato Festival and proposed changes that we were identifying for that event and a modification of that event and the title of the event. One change would be moving it from August to September, and then as well as changing the title of that event to Fairfield Fusion Festival. And there were some questions about that modification. And so real quick, I would like to invite up Juanita Johnson, who oversees in our Parks and Recs Department, superintendent, and she oversees our special events. She was the one that was the staff lead in organizing the Tomato Festival last year. And so we wanted to do just a quick verbal presentation on some of the challenges that we experienced with that event, some of the feedback we received, and then turn it over to City Council for some discussion and direction on what you all would like to see with that event, so that we can just get this nailed down and proceed to finalizing plans for that event. Juanita?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. If you will, I'm just going to read what I've written. It'll be easier that way. So as City Manager says, the Parks and Recreation team took over the Tomato Festival last year from the Fairfield Main Street Association. And upon having the opportunity to produce the 2021 Tomato Festival, we quickly noticed 2 things. 1, it was held on traditionally the hottest weekend of the summer, and 2, there was no place in Fairfield that still grew the required copious amounts of tomato varietals. After speaking with one of the previous festival producers, it became known that this has been a challenge for them for quite some time, as tomatoes were no longer Solano County's #1 crop. The Fairfield Main Street Association, FMSA, had resorted to purchasing tomatoes from the Central Valley growers in order to secure the quantities and varieties needed to produce the festival. With August being at the latter end of summer, the desired number of varietals were increasingly becoming more scarce. In 2019, to supplement the fact that they had fewer tomatoes represented, FMSA shifted gears and rebranded the event as the Tomato and Vine Festival, in which they incorporated Fairfield's latest high-yield crop, which were grapes. However, getting grapes in August prior to crush season proved to be yet another challenge. The most successful segment of the Tomato Festival began back in 2013 when FMSA partnered with the Fairfield Sassoon Chamber of Commerce to host the wine, food, and brew event in conjunction with the festival. Being an indoor event, this segment instantly became popular, and by 2019 had already outgrown the space it occupied. Due to its popularity, the producers had planned to make the wine, food, and brew pairing its own separate event the following year, and that was the Chamber of Commerce had decided that they were going to separate the 2 events. The event was slated to be held outdoors during a cooler month. Event producers agreed to stay on and support the Parks and Recreation team by holding the indoor event again in 2021. Unfortunately, changing mask mandates due to COVID thwarted their efforts, so they instead sponsored one of the outdoor beer and wine gardens in its place. After producing the festival this past year, the Parks and Recreation event team experienced many of the same challenges as FMSA did in previous years. While the event had great attendance, we still heard the same complaints. Not enough tomato varieties, none for sale, and why do we keep holding the event in the hottest month? Our debrief session included members of various city departments, community development, finance, fire, police, public works. Based on comments, questions, and concerns from the public, we came to a unanimous conclusion that it's time to rebrand the festival and, more importantly, move it to a cooler time of year. The Tomato Festival was a great thought 30 years ago. However, over time, it lost steam due to many tomato farmers moving out of the area. Fairfield's agriculture has evolved immensely during that time. With the rebranding of the downtown district, it is time for Fairfield to represent its true shining star, its cultural diversity. It's been said that Fairfield has the 4th highest diverse demographic in the Bay Area. That's saying a lot since it's roughly half its size. Not only does Fairfield encompass over 30 different cultures, its businesses are different, and Travis Air Force Base brings lots of diversity. When I thought one thing is Fairfield famous for, I came up with several things. Air Force Base, Jelly Belly, Budweiser, viticulture, farmland, its water, county seat. There was no one thing that truly represents Fairfield. Then I thought, what does all the aforementioned things have in common? It's people. The people of Fairfield is what makes it so unique and adds flavor, if you will, to this town. A town in which we're striving to make into a community, a proud, diverse, fun community of moral aptitude, a place where people actually exit the freeway at Texas Street and drive its full length before re-emerging onto the freeway at North Texas. The proposed Fairfield Fusion Festival is not a cancellation of the Tomato Festival, but merely an evolution in support of rebranding the heart of Fairfield. Our plan is to create celebrations of culture through food, music, dance, and arts. This mission will be accomplished through collaborations with local businesses, art communities, restaurateurs, chambers, and various cultural groups within Solano County. All elements of the traditional festival will still exist, minus the tomatoes. In short, we're keeping the best of the fest and kicking it up a notch to encompass all that is Fairfield. And I open this up to questions.
Any comments or questions? Any discussion? Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman
Hi,
Bertani.
thank you for an excellent presentation. This is something that I happen to feel very passionate about because the Tomato Festival has been a part of this community for so very long. I agree that we can probably have it at a different time where it's not as hot, but completely scrapping the Tomato Festival brand, I think, is a tremendous mistake. And I'm a trademark lawyer, so I know a little bit about something that I'm talking about right now. I mean, I think that rebranding makes sense in terms of a hybrid brand. I love Tomato and Vine because, the Tomato Festival name just carries the weight of when people hear that, they want to come out. And to interact with our vintners, our winemakers, I think makes a lot of sense, and I think would just deepen our relationship with our winemakers in the valley. But let me give you this example. You remember what Converse tennis shoes used to look like?
Yes.
Remember those?
Oh,
We
yes.
used to wear those, right? And you know what they look like now?
Yes.
Did Converse throw away the brand Converse?
No.
No. You don't throw away a brand that you've put so much goodwill into. That is the value of a brand. So what Converse did is what every other extremely successful brand owner does in America and around the world. You modify the products. That's all. You modify the products and get Michael Jordan on some tennis shoes and get Magic Johnson and some, So my whole argument is, I agree that we need to rebrand, but I'm saying to completely scrap the Tomato Festival part of the brand, I think we're throwing away years of goodwill that this community has invested into that brand, if that makes sense at all. So I say we keep the tomato part of it and do a workaround. I mean, I'm sure we're smart enough to figure that out. How we can do a workaround around it, so we're not maybe selling as many tomatoes, or we're not, however we brand around that, however we fix around that, I think that that we're smart enough to do that. So, but then, yeah, do a hybrid brand. My point is, the Fusion Festival has zero goodwill. What does it mean? Fusion of what? When is a fusion?
Fusion of people, cultures, arts, that's what the Fusion Festival is. And it would actually, and you mentioned the Converse shoe, and there was actually a documentary on Converse, and Converse were very uncomfortable for those ball players to play in, so they did evolve that shoe. They didn't necessarily get rid of the brand, so you're correct in that. They kept the brand, but they did revamp that shoe.
And that's exactly what I'm suggesting we do with the Tomato Festival.
Okay.
That we revamp the brand, we do modify the product that we deliver at the Tomato and Vine Festival, but just that word Tomato Festival in the city of Fairfield, people are coming down. People are coming out. So let's make sure that when they do, we'll have something that they'll be happy to, engage with and to come back again. So I'm just saying, colleagues, that, I understand what you're saying about the fusion and the advantages and the great culture we have and the diversity, and I get that, but I'm saying to somebody who's not watching this meeting, when we say, come on down to the Fusion Festival, we're starting at ground zero, because we've never had one. I mean, I know there's a first for everything, but we've got a viable brand that we can modify, I think, and build on, instead of scrapping the whole thing.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Any other comments, colleagues? Councilman Tonneson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I would agree with Pam. I was the president of the FMSA for many years. It was not uncommon for us whatsoever to go outside the county to get tomatoes. If you do this hybrid, back to one of my other questions, we came to a unanimous decision, Mr. City Manager. Who were the decision makers in that?
Staff.
So if you did the fusion or tomato and vine somehow, again, I agree with Pam, keeping that in there, would we still have, or are you bringing back the food and wine, or is that going to stay?
The food and wine portion was already being taken out for 2020. The Chamber of Commerce had decided to do a separate event downtown, and I believe that's on the one that you approved last week, the events that are being put on by the Community Development Department. There's one of them in there that has a food and wine situation.
So I don't, and Mr.
No.
City Manager, you and I have had this conversation. I don't disagree with, what's going on here, and I know this, or improve things, and I hope it works. But again, I agree with Councilmember Bertani, is just more feedback on an event like this, and you know my position on the, being on the board for so many years and how close the Tomato Festival is to my heart. And yes, it's been hot many times, but that was when the tomatoes were most readily available. So I don't disagree with the direction. I just wish that there was more conversations with us.
Understood. So if I'm hearing, it would be okay, changing months, right? I mean, I think there's some logical sense made as well for us on a staff side. It better spreads out the events in terms of these big festival events that we're doing, because we have 4th of July, and then right on its tails, we were then ramping up for Tomato Festival, and then you had a long lead time into October when we were doing Dia de los Muertos and anything related to Halloween. And so this spreads them out. It's basically 2 months between each event. But keeping the Tomato Festival brand, we're happy to do that. If that's something that is very important to the City Council, then we'll do that. And Councilwoman Bertani, as we look at some of that kind of that hybrid, and as Juanita said, keeping the best of the fest, then I would look for, if council's open to it, some direction. I can work with you, and staff can mull over some of that branding, and make sure that it fits with the Tomato Fest brand that is identified by the community.
And I would be interested to if we did poll the downtown businesses, I would be interested to see what they say, because there's mixed feelings there too, believe me. So, but yeah, no, I'm cool with moving forward. It's just, give us more information when it's something that big. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I have some comments. As you know, over the past year or so, I've been talking a lot more about us working with Suisun Valley and to become more one and not, fighting against each other. And along with that, I think that we should stay with the tomato and vine. And the reason for that, it was brought up, and this is accurate, is that tomatoes are no longer our number one here in Solano County or in Suisun Valley, which was a big grower. But vineyards and wine grapes are. And I think that we can talk with the Chamber of Commerce about putting it all together in one, and that will make a great event, and as we've done in the past. But I think we should stick with that. We want to build on the brand, and we also want to work more closely with our neighbors in Suisun Valley. Suisun Valley is going very well as far as having people come in and spend money. And we want that into the downtown. And so I agree that we must keep the tomato branding, but the tomato and vine again. And we still do grow tomatoes out in Suisun Valley, and they're used in Michelin rated restaurants in Napa. And that kind of branding itself, along with some of the great wines that we're putting out and world-renowned olive oil, I'll add.
Yes.
We need to highlight that. And I appreciate what staff did here. I appreciate looking at the wider sense of things. And again, I want us to work together with Suisun Valley and bring those great tomatoes into restaurants downtown, along with our wines. And I think this festival helps do that. And we can still have tomato ice cream and or gelato, which they make out in Suisun Valley. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. And I also feel strongly about that. We can't throw the tomato away or the tomato man costume, which the city manager has to wear. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I agree. The Tomato Festival, the brand of the Tomato Festival is really critical. And I think I actually brought that up in the past. I think I spoke to our city manager that, somehow we need to get that message across to the people that do come from other counties and other cities. Hey, this is not happening in August, it's happening in September. But I don't really have a problem with trying to blend the two, because I've said from day one that diversity is the strength of our city, okay? So with a fusion festival like we're talking about, I think that's great. But I think somehow if we can blend that tomato vine fusion, celebrating Fairfield's diversity, that would be, to me, that would be a great mix of where we want to go. I know a lot of people don't want to accept that idea, but I don't think it's a bad idea at all, because we are a changing city over the years, right? Fairfield has changed. But then again, the tomato brand is important. I get that. Tomato and vine, like Councilman Moy just said, that is important. But I think if we can somehow mix it in with the diversity of our city, that fusion concept, I think that would be great. And I'd be willing to, sit on any committee that would like to discuss that. So that's my 2 cents there, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. All I was going to say was, in listening to Professor Bertani, Councilwoman Bertani, reminded me of a Econ 101 class in college. And I think branding that's been her shtick. That's your brand, is branding. Yeah, and I agree. It's, people understand when they hear tomato, wine and stuff. So I agree with my colleagues, but Pam said it very adroitly. Thank you.
And I should just like to add that I have been told repeatedly that Suisun Valley wines are not served in our restaurants downtown. So I need to do some checking on that. There's a real nexus there, ladies and gentlemen, real nexus. Any other comments? Councilwoman Panduro, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So I agree with, and I understand where my colleagues are coming from with the branding. I think it's important too, and I also understand why the change was, the modification was brought up. And I agree with what Councilmember Vaccaro was saying with the fact that, our city is changing. So if there is a way to fuse the old with the new, that would be great.
Thus the term fusion.
Right. But somehow making it seem that, so people don't forget, I guess what they've been saying is to keep the tomato piece in there. And for me, this has been a learning experience because, like I've shared with my colleagues, being on the dais and being a member of the council, I understand the importance of community and our traditions, and the Tomato Festival is a tradition. I've come to it for many years, but I've seen the challenges myself as a volunteer the last couple of years. And it's great that we're able to modify it, but I think also in keeping to the diversity, not only of our community, correct, but also the diversity of what we are able, as an entire city, including Suisun Valley, what we bring literally to the table.
Yes.
Which does include, I think the vine part is going to be, it adds to that piece, right? It adds to the evolving nature of our community and of our city.
Yes.
Thank you.
And actually, if I may, I just wanted to say that basically we are rebranding the Tomato and Vine Festival to encompass all that is Fairfield. The Fairfield Fusion Festival represents the true heart of Fairfield. It is the ultimate celebration of culture through food, music, dance, and art exhibits. This year's festival features many traditional events, gourmet food and artisans, live music on multiple stages, children's activities, car shows, beer and wine gardens, featuring award-winning area wines. So we would not be dismissing the wineries and or the foods that are part of the Suisun Valley area, but what we would include are art exhibits, multicultural stage performance, international cuisine. So all of the food that you're speaking of with the tomatoes that are grown in Solano County, incorporating that into the festival as well, global market stalls, and roving entertainment. So as with every year, we continue to add more variety to create a successful festival for everyone involved. Stay tuned. So.
Thank you, Juanita. Any other concluding comments? Councilwoman Bertani, please.
So, and that all sounds great. That's just building and embracing more of what, we're improving every year improving. And I 100% agree with that. But I think that, at least if I'm hearing my colleagues correctly, that the Tomato and Vine, that will be the brand that will be used. But I think that there's a way, Vice Mayor Vaccaro, that we can work the concept of fusion into the Tomato and Vine. Not hard at all. So and that's what I mean by building on the brand. So now, we're having Tomato and Vine continue to invest in that, and now we're changing our Converse tennis shoe to encompass a new look and feel, and that's where the fusion comes in.
With some arch support.
With some, I don't even wear Converse. I don't even know why I use that example. It's just, but anyway, I'm a Nike person. But anyway, yeah, so we'll just build on the brand that we have, and I'd be more than happy to have conversations with you and whoever to talk about ways that we can creatively do it. But Suisun, Councilwoman Moy and all of us here, we all know Suisun Valley, that is a destination in the city of Fairfield. Yes. People wake up Sunday and Saturday mornings and say, let's go to Manka's Corner. Let's go out to the winery. Let's go hear the music. So we can also fortify our brand by piggybacking off of the amazing brand that they've already created in Suisun Valley. We have to be better partners with them. So it's an exciting prospect, I think, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to figure out what to do, and I'm willing to help out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, do we have any?
I just
requested
got a
speak cards?
speaker card. Is it Mr. Wood? Did you want to speak on this item? Yes. Oh, okay, thank you. Come on down.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I got a couple words I'd like to share with you. Garlic Festival. What do you think of? Gilroy, right? Tomato Festival. What do you think of? Fairfield. If you're in New York State and you say Garlic Festival, you're talking about Cuba, New York. We have an identity that goes with Tomato Festival. Don't drop it. You got my support on that one.
Very succinct, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then.
No, and there are no hands raised online.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022-65 with the changes.
Reflecting the changes that council has expressed tonight.
Actually, as a point of order, this resolution is just to add additional events to under 12.8.4. Under 12.8.4I, the Tomato Festival has always been an exempt event, so you don't need to add it. It's already there. This is just more, I think the discussion's been to give direction to council. And I apologize because I was outside when you guys discussed it, and I probably could have raised that point that it's always been there. So it's just a matter of directing staff that you want to run it, but it's always been exempt. So you're just now with this resolution adding additional events to be exempt.
Councilwoman Bertani, please.
As a point of clarification, in the resolution, the Tomato Festival is listed as the Tomato Festival. And what we're going to be doing this year is the Tomato and Vine with a twist of fusion. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but, I mean, the Tomato Festival is going to be rebranded. So do we need to change the resolution to reflect that?
I don't think so. If you look at 12A.4, it lists the activities that are sponsored in whole or part by the city, and it does list Tomato Festival. So I think as an attorney, you and I, we think very specific. I would be very comfortable challenging anyone who said that whatever you call Tomato and Vine Fusion is not the Tomato Festival outlined in that Muni Code.
What direction do we take now, Mr. City Attorney?
If the council is okay with the listed events in Exhibit A, then you would be approving those 19 listed events in Exhibit A, in addition to the 6 events already listed in Muni Code 12A.4, which are the Tomato Festival, the Independence Day Parade, the Matt Garcia Run for Good, the Candlelight Parade / Christmas Tree Lighting, the Veterans Day Parade, and the Downtown Farmers Market.
Okay. That's the motion. Do I have? It's been moved by Councilwoman Bertani, seconded by Councilman Tim. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We turn now to item number 17, please, Madam Clerk.
Report on inclusionary housing policies and commercial linkage fees. And our presenter is Jonathan Luong, Community Development Management Analyst.
Hello? All right. Just want to make sure. Good evening, Mayor Price, members of City Council. My name is Jonathan Leung, and tonight I'll be presenting the topic of inclusionary housing policy to you all. First, an introduction. So, an inclusionary housing policy is a local policy that extracts the economic gains and directs them towards the development of affordable housing. Why that matters to Fairfield is Fairfield was assigned 3,047 units to build for our regional housing need allocation numbers, with 10,992 assigned to the Solano County subregion. So what we're looking to do as an organization and as a city is create a policy that produces set-aside requirements, regional impact fees, and non-regional impact fees, which are also commonly interchanged with commercial linkage fees. And I'll reinforce these definitions because it takes a little time to kind of track these definitions. In addition to that, set-aside requirements are requirements that we put upon developers to set aside a percentage or number of units for affordable housing in addition to market rate units. Developers don't always have to do that. Cities can offer an option called an in lieu fee option, where they can then elect to pay the fee instead of building those on-site units, and that would go into the housing trust fund, which we recently established in December. Looking at our goals, we have two main ones: meet our RENA numbers, and also, in more general terms, provide sufficient affordable housing for our residents. There are two strategies that we're aiming to do that with. That's to be competitive as a jurisdiction, and two, add an additional source of consistent funding for our affordable housing projects. How are we doing that? Well, we have a couple actions we're pursuing. One is we're seeking to obtain a pro-housing designation from the state, and that makes us competitive for state incentives, funding, and opinion preference for a lot of infrastructure programs. As our current stage right now, our current objective is to adopt an inclusionary housing policy. Again, those are the requirements, those are the impact fees for residential and non-residential. And also another part of the action is the housing trust fund, which we, again, established in December. And I want to just pause right quick and further define the impact fees. So the residential impact fees would apply for residential developments, but non-residential impact fees would apply to any new office, retail, or industrial. And those fees are designed to remedy increased demand for workforce housing demand caused by new commercial activity. So let's step back a little bit and look at our current situation as a city, as an organization, as a community. First, overall, the city of Fairfield and the whole state of California have a shortage of affordable housing, no surprise. Around 36.5% of our residents are paying 30% or more of their household income towards rent and utilities. HUD defines this as being cost burden. Third, of course, again, I want to reiterate, we have to meet our RENA goal numbers. Quick little highlight on that. We've met our numbers for moderate and above moderate. What we desperately need to focus on are low and very low. And the fourth one that started becoming a more prevalent and important topic is the political climate at the state level continues to change. Last year, SB 9 and SB 10 passed, and what those legislation bills did was reduce the amount and limit the amount of local control cities have for zoning. In addition, the Attorney General recently formed a 12-member task force with the Department of Justice, and that could lead to future litigation against cities who don't meet their numbers, with another goal of enforcing housing laws throughout the state. But it's not all doom and gloom. We've done much as an organization, and we should be proud of that. The minimum we have in our current municipal code is the incentives and concessions, which meet the minimum state planning and state zoning laws. What those are: offering developers greater density bonus, reducing parking requirements, lowering development standards, and offering property tax abatements. What we recently established was the Housing Trust Fund, in which council allocated a little over $1 million to seed that fund, but we need more. And then that leads us into our next objective right now, is the inclusionary housing policy. Now, a pro-housing designation isn't the end-all be-all, but an important thing to know about all of these actions we've taken is they build and scaffold into one another. Each component can work by itself or together to make us competitive and really tap into funding sources to help us with a lot of affordable housing needs. So we're looking at up front are 20 jurisdictions within the North Bay sub-region with varying levels of inclusionary housing policies. Some are at a minimum and they just have the requirements. Some are more comprehensive. They have that, they have an in lieu fee option, and they also have the commercial linkage fee or / also known as non-regional impact fees. Now, the reason why staff researched these jurisdictions and within the North Bay sub-region is there's some common qualities that we all share. One is most of these jurisdictions are within a 50-mile radius of the San Francisco Bay Area, which is commonly understood to be the epicenter of the housing affordability crisis. even more on that end, we're experiencing in recent years, even more than that, a lot of immigration from the immediate Bay Area, and that's putting upward pressure on our residents' home prices. Another key takeaway I want to point out is within the 4 counties within the North Bay subregion, that's Marin, Napa, Sonoma, and of course Solano, Benicia is the only city within Solano County that has an inclusionary housing policy in form of requirement and in lieu fee option, but no commercial linkage. More so on that, Fairfield has only 3 other counterparts when it comes to having cities of over 100,000 people. You have Santa Rosa, Vacaville, and Vallejo, and Santa Rosa is the only city that has a comprehensive inclusionary housing policy. So again, commercial linkage, in lieu, and requirements. So how do we establish an inclusionary housing policy? The very first step for us as an organization, as a city, is to commission a nexus study. Very similar to AB 1600 fees, we have to justify the relationship between the fees we wish to levy with understand the infrastructure impacts and how to mitigate those. What this would cost, the estimate would range between $100,000 and $150,000, and that would be sourced from Fund 22 or the Load Mod Fund. What we're looking to get from that next study is a market and feasibility study that will help us understand the impact fees for non-residential and residential development projects. And that brings us into step 2. Once we go into step 2, staff will review the results. They'll provide the information on what is a justifiable maximum fee amount, understand what's an appropriate level for inclusion for affordable housing, that the percentage I mentioned earlier, and the number of units for affordable housing for developers. And also, it would really break down the financial feasibility of all the fee amounts to provide council with the best decision to make. So staff will review these results and then return to council with the intent to adopt an inclusionary housing policy. And really, just again, want to draw attention back to our goals being to provide affordable housing, meet our reading numbers. The strategies are to be competitive and have an additional source of consistent funding. And we're already on track to do we've done a lot of these things already, and this is just carrying on that momentum. With our pro-housing designation we're seeking to obtain, adopting inclusionary housing policy, and already establishing a housing trust fund. And so at this time, there's no actions that the council needs to take. Staff is informing, presenting on this topic. And with that, I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Councilman Tonneson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm reading all of these ones that are in it. How long has Benicia been in that program? I mean, is it years?
Yes, I don't know the exact year, but it's been several years since they've had that.
Okay. I'm good.
Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, and you might not know this, but what happens if you don't meet your RENA numbers?
I'd have to defer to Dave Gasway or Latan Jones.
So currently, there's, within RENA basically just designates that you have to plan for land suitable for development of affordable housing at those numbers. And what the state has not yet gotten to a point of doing is providing any, say, penalty for a jurisdiction not meeting their RENA allocation numbers. So through our through the housing element of the general plan, we have to demonstrate that we have land sufficiently zoned for housing that could meet our affordable housing target or our RENA numbers. The state, though, has increasingly been inching its way towards the notion, and there's been conversations in Sacramento, that at some point in time, there is going to be some, in effect, penalty for not meeting RENA allocation targets. And so at this time, while there is no, teeth, so to speak, in terms of not producing the units, it's not out of the question that at some point in time in the future that we could be looking at some law. And the state certainly has been going fast and furious at the affordable housing crisis with dozens of bills per year that are adopted that are just rapidly changing the overall affordable housing landscape and the housing landscape in general from a city's perspective. And as Jonathan mentioned, SB 9 and 10 really started to restrict some of our local control. And so with the inclusionary housing policies, that's one way in which, with a pro-housing designation, we could position ourselves in the eyes of the state, particularly through state HCD, the Housing and Community Development Department, as a city that's doing our best efforts in terms of meeting the affordable housing crisis, meeting it head on.
Okay, and like I read a proclamation 2 weeks ago, I'm very pro-housing. And I didn't really it didn't dawn on me until Scott Tonneson brought up Benicia, and they're yes, yes, yes across the board. And I'm familiar with building pretty much in Solano County. I don't know about Cotati or how many homes, I guess, how much building is going on in the city of Benicia? And that's probably a rhetorical question. You might say, heck, I don't know. But I want to make sure that obviously we do our fair share because it's extremely important. But you also understand we're the tip of the spear a lot of times when people say, we want it, but we don't want it here. Or, okay, you can put it, only put it here. So you run into the NIMBYs, right? So if we position ourselves to do, which I think we should, ethically, morally, and lawfully, but I'm just curious about what happens if you don't, and knowing doesn't seem to be any building going on in other cities that have said yes, yes, yes. So it's probably more of a speech than a question, but I'm really curious, and I think the governor said something about, well, if you don't meet your RENA numbers, something bad's going to happen. But we've heard this now for forever. So I think we need to be careful as a city that, yes, it's desperately needed, and understanding some of this housing might go in places people didn't or don't think it's appropriate. But fortunately, if you live in the city of Fairfield, everywhere is appropriate. That's my standing. So, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. All right, thank you.
Can I just briefly respond to that? Thank you, Councilmember Tim. So one of the things staff did was to contact a lot of these jurisdictions that had inclusionary housing policy. And the question we threw to them was, what was the change, the delta in a number of affordable housing after implementing these policies? And at this point, there's so much variability. I think a big part of it was a lot of these jurisdictions, I think in our sub-region, have been tracking it so sharply the past few years, and that may be changing. And that's something definitely staff can dig more into it. I would say that with our goals, this one is a big strategy that we can implement that, and we can build into part of that, making it more accurate accounting of affordable housing, what we're constructing. For all these other cities that have made just so much variability, so we're not totally sure yet.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
Councilwoman
Mayor?
Panduro, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a question regarding, just so I think the committee can be educated as well. Currently, for affordable housing, how is it paid for? And then how much of that fund or how much of that support, how long does that take us out? And then, how would this help us with supplementing that?
Yeah, and I'll switch it over to Latan Jones to answer that.
Thank you very much, Latan Jones. The first question, currently, the affordable housing has been paid for out of low mod funds. And right now, those low mod funds are actually dwindling. So it's really important in order for us to be able to develop other means or sources to be able to continue to build affordable housing. Your second question was?
Yeah, so if you're saying it's short, how long would it take us, I guess, to run out of those funds?
Well, right now, for instance, as we start looking at the budget over the course of a couple of years, that budget is actually going to dwindle down to less than $1 million. And when you actually have affordable housing that actually costs approximately $200,000 a unit, then that won't actually get you very far at all. It may get you a year if we just relied upon that, which is the reason why we've developed the housing trust funds. We're working to submit an application in May of this year for the housing trust fund so that we can build more revenue for that as well. But what we have currently, it won't get us through another year. No problem.
Councilwoman
Mr.
Moy,
Mayor?
Mr.
Yes,
Vice Mayor,
thank
any
you, Mr.
comments?
Mayor.
Yeah, Councilwoman
Yes,
Moy, go ahead, please.
Thank you. The issue of affordable housing is complex, and it is very political at the state level. I think that we as a city and joining in with the other cities in the state, and especially start with the county, is that we need to start pushing back a little bit. We have a new assemblywoman who worked for a builder. I think that she is very pro-growth, pro-building. Some of the things that need to be done here to reduce the cost here are to ease regulations. That has to happen at the state level, but we also need to look at what we're doing here in our cities and in the county. We can't expect middle-class people, which is mostly what we're taxing the heck out of and breaking, frankly, to pay for housing for others, which is what we do with affordable housing. And with all the premium of everything that's going on, we're looking at raising fees here in the city, and we have inflation. Affordable housing is going to be very, very difficult for us to build and for other cities. But we need to cut regulations. We need to look at what we're doing to see if we can cut back on that. And not just for affordable housing, but for people who work and work hard. 2 people. Now it's like 3 or 4 people living in a house to buy one. And I just think that we need to think a little bit more before jumping into things. I don't really understand all the details of this. I've read the item, and I totally agree that we need affordable housing, but we need to take it on at all levels. Again, it's just unbelievable the cost to build a home right now. 6 months ago, just to buy plywood, 1 sheet, we went to buy some here. Unbelievable. Do you know how much plywood goes into a home? It's stunning. So I think we need to look at all those things and think about the whole big picture. And yes, chug along here, but really think about what we're doing instead of just jumping to this and to that without real purpose. We need to have a real line at where we're going and know what we're doing. So that's that. Thank you very much for the presentation. I understand what we're trying to do. As somebody who works with homeless people literally every day still, I understand that we need housing. We actually need shelters for them, but that's a different scene. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me talk a little bit about that, because I'm tired of the state mandating that we do things and they can't even keep their own house in order. We need to make sure that our house is in order. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Vaccaro, please. Any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say, I've listened to my colleagues, and I agree that, this is a mandate with affordable housing, and I don't understand completely what's going, I think that my suggestion would be to maybe bring this back, maybe do a little bit more research on this. I understand the concept of, okay, you put it into affordable housing or then in lieu into the fund. I get that, okay? But I think it probably needs to be explained a little bit more in detail. I don't know if my colleagues agree with me or not, but that would be my suggestion. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I would bring it back, maybe with a little bit more detail. Just so everybody can understand it more fully. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just share one quick observation, colleagues. After all these years, there are some cities that completely ignore the RENA numbers. And they rely upon cities like Fairfield to pick up the gap. So, just a comment. Any other comments, colleagues? Council.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Is it possible, are there different gradations by which we can engage this kind of a policy? Are there bright line numbers, or are there different gradations that a city who's never done it before can possibly engage the strategy?
Yes, absolutely. So just to provide kind of a basic example of, what the inclusionary requirements could be. Currently, in the city's general plan, we actually have a requirement for medium-density, single-family residential, so separated homes, right? Not anything that shares walls, that meet a medium density of 10 units or more per acre. We require 10% of the units that are built within that category to be built as affordable. And that, I frankly don't know where that comes from within the general plan. But the question that we're sort of asking is, at some percentage like that, whether it's 10% or 8% or 5%, does the council want us to explore what those impacts might be for expanding the zoning designations that would then have those inclusionary requirements? So, for example, would you want us to explore what different levels of inclusionary requirements might look like for multifamily, for higher density, or single family, low density, so say 6 or 8 units to the acre, which many of our developments are building at right now within that residential low density? And then that's where one of the things that Jonathan had mentioned was in looking at doing Nexus, what we would also recommend then is also identifying a market study that says, okay, what would the impacts then to the cost of housing? What would the impact to the housing market look like should we have a Nexus analysis completed that identifies what a maximum threshold on a fee instead of developing those units might be, or what the impacts to pricing might be if you were to do inclusionary requirements whereby that requirement to develop those units is fully on a developer. So again, for just trying to highlight what I'm saying, because I get this is all complex stuff. If you had a medium density developer that's building 10 units to the acre, single family residential homes, detached, and they're building 100 homes. And right now, we say, hey, 10% of those units must be affordable. That means that the developer has to develop and either sell or rent 10 homes within that 100 units as affordable, and affordable based on the affordability requirements for low, very low, or moderate income, right? Those are the RENA classifications that we would have targets for. So with those 10 units, you have an option then from a policy perspective. One option is developer, you have to develop those and sell them or rent them, and that's fully on you. That's fully your burden. Or through a Nexus study, we would determine what would be a fee in lieu of the developer producing those units. So what that does for the developer is that allows them then to take those costs and spread that out. And then you as a council, for whatever those fees might be, the Nexus would identify what is the maximum fee that would be charged in lieu, and you then have a policy decision to make of whether or not you want to charge that maximum fee, you want to charge less than that maximum fee, and you can also set those percentages. Do you want that to be 15% inclusionary, 10%, or 5%? And so ultimately, there is no action tonight on this item. We're trying to shed light a little bit on an opportunity, sort of the state of the art in developing and producing affordable housing, recognizing that, as the statistic that was shown, 36.5% of our households right now are cost burdened. And it's certainly something that was discussed quite a bit at the council retreat, housing affordability being an increasing challenge. And so the menu of policy options we have to counteract the increasing affordability challenge that we have are things that we're looking at. This is one of those policies that we have not addressed, and as Jonathan demonstrated through some of the research, not every city has addressed. This is an option, though, and it's one that if we were to go down that path and have some inclusionary requirements at some level, then it provides us an opportunity to also obtain the pro-housing designation from the state. And that pro-housing designation then really makes us far more competitive for state funding opportunities. So as everybody has probably heard in the news, the governor's last budget proposal that is out there has billions of dollars for affordable housing. So the state is whether we agree or not with the state's regulations, the state is certainly stepping up with more funding opportunities. Now, all of those funding opportunities, that's competitive. There's a lot of cities, a lot of counties, a lot of places in this state that are going after dollars that ultimately are limited in the scheme of the affordability crisis that we have as a state. And so for us to be most competitive at getting those dollars out of Sacramento, the pro-housing designation is one of those ways in which we take a step up above the competition because in a lot of those funding opportunities, you get bonus points for doing that. So there's multiple facets to the benefits that could be had. What we're not saying is that any inclusionary policy has to be one size fits all, but rather what we're looking for discussion and direction from council on is this something you want us studying? Because the more we study it, obviously that's a lot of staff time and there are some costs, as Jonathan quoted, to do the nexus analysis and the market study. We've gotten some preliminary cost in the $100,000 to $150,000 range. And if that is something that the council wants us to take a look at, then we just wanted to do a check-in to see, is this a path we should be going down or not?
So thank you for that very comprehensive and helpful response. So it sounds like what you're saying is that inclusionary housing is one entree on a menu of policy decisions that this council should consider in addressing affordable housing. Is that right?
Yes, and a couple of them you have already also taken advantage of. So, for example, the Housing Trust Fund that was created, that's one. I would look to Latan, our housing director, for some of what those other items would be. But when we have observed affordable housing operations in other communities that have had success in building and developing and delivering affordable housing, this is one of the primary policies most of them have, because to Councilwoman Panduro's point, or to the point of her question, how much money do we have, how long is that going to last? The low and moderate income funds, which are really the 20% set aside from the former redevelopment agency, we've been living off of that for a decade, mostly because we haven't really built much affordable housing. It isn't until recently when we started a housing department and really started targeting and focusing more on affordable housing that we got, now we're starting to spend down some of those dollars. Those dollars will run out. When they run out, other than the ability to potentially get some state grant funds, we have no other financial mechanism for which to attempt to package projects for the development of affordable housing in Fairfield.
So can you bring us a menu?
Yeah, we'd be happy to.
Okay, because, how can we, before allocating this funding and the staff's time in researching, I think it would make more sense, to the Vice Mayor's point, to have more information, not only about this, but bring us a menu. Bring us a menu with the top 5 or whatever items on it that we can consider in terms of how we'll tackle the affordable housing crisis. And then I think we can make a more informed decision with a menu of options that we have as possible policy decisions, if that makes sense.
Yep. That makes a great deal of sense. Councilman Tim, please.
Well, yeah, and we're doing the fee study now. I mean, we just pretty much had a tutoring session on that, and that's coming before us here pretty quickly, right? Because what I'm looking forward is, I have no issue in set-asides or the buildings, obviously the developers, because it impacts their bottom line. But if we could find on your menu almost a sustainable, where you can keep the housing fund alive, because, I mean, let's face it, people aren't afraid of arena rules, because I know they're not building, right? But I want to position us in a spot where, one, we do what the law says, but two, we serve our citizens. And I think maybe there's a way we can, I don't want to say finagle, but I think we have very smart staff. We have smart people. I think we can do this. And I'm not opposed to a little pushback from the state. Sometimes they have to clarify things, but I think this could be a win-win with just a little more information, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to thank David for clarification on the issue. I appreciate your, as Councilwoman Bertani said, very comprehensive answer. And that's all I really wanted to say. I know I'd asked for more, and you actually gave me a lot more just then, so thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor, and I'd like to remind all of us that providing affordable housing for folks stationed at Travis Air Force Base should be a very, very high priority for all of us. Otherwise, Travis may be on the edge. So, any other concluding comments?
I was asked a question. What do you define affordable as? Do you have a number, or do we just base that off of the AMI income? AMI?
Yeah, based off AMI at different targets, 30% is extremely low. That's basically homeless or near homeless. 50% is very low. 80% and below is low, and then 100, 120% is moderate income.
If there are no other comments, colleagues, then I'll ask Clerk, if you have any request to speak cards on this item, please?
Not on this item, no.
Okay. Is it okay to move on to our next item, please? Okay. Okay, and item 18 will be continued. So now we're on to item 19, public hearings. Public hearing and resolution 2022-88 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield annexing territory, Brio Studios, to Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, as annexation number 56, authorizing the levy of a special tax within the annexed territory and submitting the levy of a special tax to the qualified electors thereof, and resolution 2022-89 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield declaring the results of a special annexation election in territory annexed to Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, determining the validity of prior proceedings and directing recording of amended notice of special tax lien for City of Fairfield Community Facilities District Number 2012-2, Public Safety Services, Open Space Operation, and Park Maintenance, annexation number 56, Brio Studios. And our presenter is Ryan Panganiban again. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. On March 15th, the council adopted Resolution 2022-42. Let's set the public hearing for today. And conducting the public hearing is the final step in the process in which to annex the proposed development, Brios Studios, which is located on Puda South Canal and west of North Texas Street within the boundaries of the Community Facilities District 2012-2. The development consists of a 3-story mixed-use building containing 15 apartments and 2 office suites. Again, that concludes my presentation. Madam Clerk, do we have the ballots?
I believe you vote on the first resolution, 22-88, and then I open the ballot. Isn't that correct?
Oh.
That's how we've done it in the past.
Yes, you also need to open the public hearing as to each one first.
Okay. I do not have any speaker cards or hands raised.
We are back now for council action.
Adopt resolution.
And this is as to Resolution 2022-88.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very
And
much.
now I'll open the ballot.
Oh, sorry. I forgot about that.
And it is one yes vote in favor of annexation.
Wonderful.
So now we need a motion to approve Resolution 2022-89.
And actually, Mr. Mayor, if you could open the public hearing for that one as well.
We'll open the public hearing. Okay.
Oh. I have no speaker cards.
We'll close the public hearing then. Bring it back for council action, please. Madam Clerk?
Do we have a motion to approve Resolution 2020?
So moved.
That was Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'll take roll. Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Move to item 20, our final public hearing. Public hearing and first reading and introduction of ordinance 2022-08 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield, amending Chapter 25, Article 1, Section 25-12-3 of the Fairfield Municipal Code, also known as the City of Fairfield Zoning Ordinance and Zoning Map, rezoning approximately .68 acres at the northeast corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and Brighton Drive, APN number 0034-022-380, from residential low-medium 6, RLM 6, to residential low-medium, which is RLM. And our presenter is Principal Planner Maylee Sheehan.
Thanks, Karen. Good evening, Mayor and council members, and those of you hanging in with us this evening. My name is Maylee Sheehan. I'll be presenting the Brighton Place item tonight. The project is located at the northeast corner of Pennsylvania Avenue and Brighton Drive on a vacant .68 acre site, or a .89 gross acre site. The site is currently zoned RLM 6, residential low to medium density, with a 6,000 square foot lot minimum. Here we have a contextual map to give you a better sense of where we are located in the city. The star on the map is the project site, and so you have Pennsylvania Avenue and Brighton Drive. Some key markers on this map are Veteran Memorial Park, Solano Christian Academy, and the Safeway Shopping Center that you can see towards the left upper corner of the map. The site has a general plan designation of RLM, residential low to medium, and a zoning designation of RLM 6, again, residential low to medium with a 6,000 square foot lot minimum. During its March 9th meeting, the Planning Commission approved Resolution PC 2022-003, approving a tentative subdivision map to create a 6-lot subdivision, and a development review application which encompasses the subdivision's house plans, landscape design, and site infrastructure. Additionally, that Planning Commission resolution makes a recommendation to the council to approve the requested zone change. Tonight, the council will be asked to take action on the proposed zone change as the last application to the project Brighton Place. Going into the zone change proposal, the project has a gross developable acreage of 0.98 acres. When we calculate density, the zoning ordinance requires that we look at gross developable acreage, which would include the site and areas of the right-of-way extending into the center line of local and collector streets. And so that's how we get this larger gross developable acreage for the site versus what would just be within the property lines. Looking at the zoning designation right now, RLM 6, it allows for 4.5 to 5 units to be developed per gross acre. That would allow 5 units on this project site. The proposed project is 6 units, and therefore the applicant is requesting a zone change to RLM. Under the RLM designation, you may develop 4.5 to 8 units per gross acre, which would be a total of 7 units for this site. Staff reviewed the project in compliance with CEQA and determined that the proposed zone change is not considered a project under SB 10 and therefore is not subject to further CEQA analysis. Senate Bill 10 authorizes local governments to adopt an ordinance to zone any parcel up to 10 units of residential density per parcel. That is subject to the ordinance meeting the city's obligation to affirmatively further fair housing and is consistent with permitted zoning ordinance height in this zone, that would be 35 feet, and the parcel is in an urban infill site. This proposed zone change meets all of those requirements, and therefore it is not considered a project under CEQA. And so with that, staff recommends that the City Council adopt Ordinance 2022-08, approving the zone change and facilitating the Brighton Place project. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Any comments or questions, colleagues?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I am really excited about this project. Growing up here, that place was Monte Vista Nursery. And the Hannigan family, Tom Hannigan and his family, lived around the corner on Brighton Court. So, and my family, my grandma and grandpa lived up in there. But what's great about this project is that we're doing one infill development, which we want to really look at here. And this builder has done some other infill development here in the city and done a wonderful job, not far from this site. Number 2, we're going to put, more homes in there. So that helps with pressure as far as housing supply. And it's just a really good use of this. And I hope that our staff will continue to look at these kind of things and encourage others who own empty and vacant land like this to go ahead and work on getting some infill development there. We were just talking about affordable housing. This goes to that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to make the change that that they're asking for, so the builder can go ahead and the owners can go ahead and get those homes built.
You have to hold your motion, please, Councilwoman Moy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, I do have a speaker online and also here in person, David Pyle. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to see you putting on your jackets because I'm freezing.
Yeah, it's cold today.
Thank you for waiting.
I have no objections actually to the project itself. My biggest objection is parking. You're going to be adding at least 12 cars to this area. I invite all of you to come down there and see the traffic on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's a freeway. I've seen 2 dogs killed. One last week, someone hit it and threw it in the gutter. And on my way to the store, I saw this dead dog in the side of the street next to the school that someone hit because of speeders. I've been arguing to Councilman Mayo about speeding on Pennsylvania Avenue. You've designated it as a safe route to schools. You've designated it with a bike path. And under the Highway and Road Design
principles. If you designate it as a bike path, the speed limit has to be 25, not 35. You put on the corner of my property a thing that says your speed is. Nobody pays attention to that. That's called sign pollution. I've seen in other cities where they put these wide speed bumps, not the little teeny jaw-breaking ones, but the wide ones, and a cutout for the wheelbase of emergency vehicles. So they can go through at emergency speeds without being hindered by the speed bump, but drivers cannot. They have to slow down. When I first moved here, I brought it up to the to the police department, and I was told we can't do anything to impede the traffic to the mall. That's a ridiculous excuse for someone's life. I see school kids day after day going up and down that street, running across the street. They're not looking, as kids do, and will continue to do, no matter what kind of crosswalk you put in down at the corner across from the school. So my problem is, what are you going to do about the increased traffic, and how are you going to control the traffic as far as speed? Because you're cutting 6 units, that's 12 cars. If they have teenagers, that's 18 cars. And I don't want to see Pennsylvania Avenue becoming a parking lot like it is further down the street near Tabor in Pennsylvania, where you have someone there selling used cars. He's using the street as his parking lot for his used cars. I don't know who owns those units there, but I don't particularly care seeing people driving up, looking at cars and taking them out for test drives. And, you know, this is a residential neighborhood, not a business neighborhood. So if you want quality of life in the city of Fairfield, you've got to enforce your codes, enforce your ordinances, and control speed. Because you don't know how many times I've seen people do crazy things in this town when they're driving. You know, I'll be coming up to my house, making a left turn to go in my driveway with the signal on, and they'll pass me as I'm trying to turn.
Would you conclude, please?
Pardon?
Would you conclude your comments, please?
I'm done.
Okay. Thank you very much. Compelling. Are there any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
I see there's one hand raised online. Brian, can you bring that person in?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yes, we have our next speaker is Zachary Wright. And Zachary, feel free to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Zachary Wright. On behalf of Discovery Builders, we're continuing to be happy to be a part of this wonderful community. I know there was a couple questions that was asked that I could address. As with regards to the parking, we do have 2-car garages along with 2 parking spots in the driveways, along with 1 off-site parking per dwelling unit, so 6 dwelling units. One of the considerations for safety that was also mentioned was with regards to Pennsylvania. One of the design criteria was that the entrance was going to be brought in off of Brighton Drive, just from a safety perspective, so that we don't have the traffic getting in on Pennsylvania. And then one of the other items that was brought in is on our conditions of approval was adding some additional street lighting in that intersection to make it a little more safe with regards to pedestrian crossings. With that, if there's any other questions you have, please feel free to ask, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
I do not.
Okay. I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion to waive full reading, read by title only, and introduce ordinance 2022-08 for first reading.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we can move motion in a second. Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Okay, sorry, was that Councilmember Moy and Vice Mayor?
And the Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilmember Bertani?
Yes.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Panduro?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Tonneson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Mayor Price.
Yes, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We have no other business before this council. We are adjourned until Tuesday, May 3rd. Thank you very much. Appreciate your being here. Good night.